Okay, we are continuing the cases where the contract, which should be enforced by the government, but the cases where government would not enforce that. Uh, as I explained, there are some clear cases like you are signing something with 5-year-old boy who doesn't have the ability to make the contract, make a decision, or you're signing with the mafia under a gunpoint in your head. That is clearly something that the government should not enforce it. But other cases, it's more like the contract has a gap. So if the two party really has considered to that, then they would have a special phrase in their contract, but they didn't. As a result, people would think that that is something that government would not enforce it, but it is more like reliance or gap filling cases. Okay, next case, mutual mistake. Here we have to you have to look at the word mutual because later, soon after this, we are going to talk about unilateral. So it's like both sides make a mistake against one side made a mistake case. So what if both sides make a mistake about fact or identity? What's the difference? First, the identity is the example we have dealt with earlier, that the seller think I'm selling the Chevrolet, the cheap car, but the buyer think I'm buying the Cadillac, the expensive car. So the buyer think the Cadillac was very cheap, and the seller think the price for the Chevrolet is very expensive. So both of them are happy, but it turns out when the buyer think, oh, Chevrolet at such a high price, and the seller says Cadillac at such a low price. So that is identity. Whether the car is Cadillac or a Chevrolet, they had a mistake about identity, and both party has it. Okay. What about fact? Fact is something like this. There are person A and B involved, and A sold a remote mountain that he owned to person B. But the A and B both know that the reason why person B purchased that mountain is he want to deal with the business with the wood. So the mountain has a big forest, and then person B want to cut the trees and make a wood out of it so that he can sell in the business. Timber business. Yeah, timber. Okay. So they signed it maybe the 1st of May. But then it's such a remote place. Nobody had known that. But 2 days ago, 29th of April, there was a fire. But then the owner A didn't know, the purchaser B didn't know. So when they made a deal and signed a contract, there was a mountain, but the forest is gone. So this is the fact. Both A and B thought that the mountain had a forest, but then what they didn't know is the forest was burned down and has no business value. And I mentioned the Chevrolet and Cadillac example. And in this case, when both people make a mistake, the rule is then let's nullify the whole contract because it's a contract based on misunderstanding, and both parties do not want to enforce that. So let's make it make it something that the contract was never signed. So as I said, the chapter 9 has many interesting questions. examples. Question 9.31, Raffles versus House. I don't know these names very well, but House. I think it's the British case, 1964. I think it's 1864. Okay, we have to check. But anyway, there one person purchased a cotton, and the condition is I want a cotton in Britain, and the cotton is currently at India. So I'll purchase the cotton in India at this price. Conditional on that, the cotton would be sent by a ship named Peerless. So the person, I don't know which is which, but let's assume that Raffles is the person in Britain and House is the person in India. And then the Raffles says, okay, I want the cotton to be shipped by Peerless. But then House, okay, I sent it. But when it arrived, Raffles say, it's not Peerless. House says, what do you mean? It's Peerless. It turns out there were two ships coming from India to Britain. Wow, this is a big problem. I don't know why the two ships has the same name. But the first Peerless departed India in October. That's what Raffles meant. I want to get it early. But then House sent it the second ship, which departed India in December. So from Raffles' point of view, I want the cotton as quickly as possible, but it arrived 2 months later, so I cannot pay. House said, what are you talking about? I sent the cotton exactly on the vote that you indicated. But then there are two ships with the same name. I think basically it's the problem of this ship company and the British government, which allow these two ships as the same name. So I think it's not 1964. It's like 1764 or 1864, long time ago. This shouldn't happen again in current period. But anyway, this is problem because the cotton is already there, and then it's a mutual mistake. The Raffles didn't know that there was another Peerless in December. House didn't know that there's another Peerless in October. So it's easy for you to say, oh, Chevrolet and Cadillac, let's cancel each other. Let's assume that the contract never existed. But in this case, House want to get the money because he sent it all the way to Britain. Raffles said it arrived 2 months later, so it has no value for me, and things like that. Well, I don't know. I personally think both of them should sue the ship company or the British government for the reason that the two ships has the same name. That should never be allowed. That, if I'm a judge, that's what I would say. But I do not know exactly what happened in this case because the book didn't mention it. But anyway, if you're interested, you can, I didn't, but you can search in the Google and what was the verdict. But then, obviously, I think it is the fault of the ship company, or at least Raffles and House should be more cautious. So the main point, okay, would be that this thing can happen again. Then who has the lowest cost of proving all this? Probably Raffles and House should check more thoroughly. If we make one of them responsible, they would check thoroughly whether there's any other boat with the same name. But I think the lowest cost bearer would be the government or the government Department of Transportation or Ministry of Transportation. So I think that would be the case if I am the judge. Unilateral mistake. So mutual mistake, basically, we are quite ready to nullify because both people misunderstand. But unilateral mistake is something else. I have when I took this law and economics course at Harvard, the professor had a very sad story. His father was a diplomat who positioned in Japan, so he gathered a lot of Japanese antiques. So the professor at Harvard said, "Oh, if my father passed away, if my father gave me the Japanese antique, it would be a fortune." But then one day he was shocked that the old antiques were gone, and he asked his father, "Where are the antiques?" And the father said, "Oh, the antiques are so many antiques in my house, so I have trouble with that." But then one nice young man came in and said, "Oh, I can take out all the antiques for you." So I gave it to him. My God. Obviously, the father, old man, didn't know the value of the antique. And then the person who purchased it know that it's very valuable. There is a story that a antique expert going around the rural area in Korea, and then he found out one farmer's house. There was a very expensive Joseon Dynasty porcelain used for the dog food dishes. So dog is eating out of a several million Korean won Joseon Dynasty porcelain. And then he said, "Can I have that? Can I pay you maybe $10?" The farmer was very happy. "Okay, it's a useless thing and I use it for my dog. And if you pay me $10, I'm happy." So he gave him, which turns out to be not $10, but like $1,000. So later, people complain. I mean, you know that it's so valuable. How come you never tell me? Obviously, the antique expert know the value, so he has no mistake, no misunderstanding. The farmer, on the other hand, has a misunderstanding of the value. But then, in this case, the court say that's justified. We cannot nullify the contract because the farmer or ordinary people never know whether the thing he or she has is a very valuable antique or not. But then the expert spent maybe 10, 20 years to investigate and learn what is the real antique valuable thing and what is not like fake. So we have to compensate for his effort because without those experts, all these valuable antiques would be gone. So if the person who correctly understands the value is an expert who invested lots and lots of time to correctly know the value, and on the other hand, the other person is misunderstood, then the court wouldn't say that that contract should be nullified. However, what if one party doesn't make mistake, understand the value correctly, the other party doesn't? However, the person who understands value correctly understand correctly by chance, not investing a lot of time and learning for that. The typical case is Laidlaw and Organ. Two people lived in 1815 New Orleans in USA. And there was a war between USA and UK at that time. And because of UK, the British naval force, the Navy, blockaded the New Orleans harbor. So New Orleans harbor has a lot of cottons exported to European countries. But because of British Navy blockade harbor, the cotton's piled up, but nobody can buy it. Nobody can export it. So cotton price is almost zero. So one day, Laidlaw says, "Oh, I want to purchase the cotton at a very low price." and everybody was happy. Then they sell the cotton to him. The next day, the New Orleans harbor is open. The British Navy withdraw, and then as a result, the usual price of cotton was maybe 10, but the Laidlaw purchased at 1, but then just one day after, it became 10 again. So this person made a lot of money, and people complain because he knew that the price would be up. Why? Because the person was at the bar drinking a lot, and then the next to him there was a Navy officers, and they talked about it. Oh, 1 or 2 days after at the end of this week, the New Orleans harbor will be open. And he just by chance, he was at the right place at the right time, and just without any effort, he was just drinking beer and got this valuable information, and he used it to get a big profit. So the American court at that time said, this person didn't invested any money and time or effort to get this information, so we don't really have to value that contract. I don't know. I don't know whether economic point of view, the efficiency doesn't matter who gets what in this case. But I don't think this happens so often, so we wouldn't really interested. But once again, the point is not the Laidlaw and Oregon. This is a special case. The unilateral mistake, one party correctly understand, the other party misunderstand, the contract basically stand. Unlike the mutual mistake, in which case the mutual mistake, the contract usually nullified. Okay. Let me see. Okay, we are gonna stop it here because otherwise I'm gonna have another suddenly stop lecture. I don't want to do that. So this is the end of lecture 31, and then soon I'm gonna upload lecture 32, which would be the end of contract law. Thank you.